And when in your growing up years, you lived for many years in your formative years on the campus of Lincoln University. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you lived in a fairly isolated environment. In fact, in the biography that's been written of your family, Roger Williams quotes your sister as saying you lived in a very isolated community and it was a very isolated existence. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Well, both Fort Valley, where we lived for the first 5 years of my life, and then Lincoln, where we lived for the next 12 years, were rural, so isolated in that sense. They were sort of closed communities, college campus, closed in that sense and isolated. And you're surrounded by a relatively small group of people who are your neighbors and your friends. So although at Lincoln University I went to public school and was educated with a wide variety of children from the surrounding community, in my non-school life I lived in this very small world populated by academics, their spouses and children. And in many ways, it was a world cut off from the larger world, although the larger world was always present, and ever intruding, and we went in and out of it. But it really was a closed society.
How is that larger world ever present? What do you mean by that?
Well, I remember once we were sitting on our front porch of our home at Lincoln, and Lincoln's off the main highway between Philadelphia. It really runs from Key West to Augusta, Maine, Route 1. And so anybody could drive in there, and we're sitting on the porch, and you hear this, and someone had shot at the house. And it was a typical president's house with big columns in the front, and the shots hit the columns. And had they hit us, you know, we would have, who knows what might have happened. And we didn't realize at the time what it was, but that was the world intruding. We lived at Lincoln very close to the Maryland border. And in Rising Sun, Maryland was a Klan center, and the Klan held rallies there and burned crosses and did all those things. So you knew that was there. You knew it intruded. And the time came when Lincoln students went into the nearby town of Oxford and sat in the downstairs part of the movie theater, which was segregated by custom, not by law. And that caused a tremendous hubbub in the neighborhood. They'd violated this racial code that had stood unchallenged for all these years. Because they were college students, they were young people, they were from Philadelphia and Norfolk and Washington and New York and, you know, big city people. And they wouldn't tolerate this kind of attitude. So there was always tension, both the normal town gown tension that you see in every academic community surrounded by a larger community, and a black-white tension. Here's this overwhelmingly black male campus, Lincoln was all men then, surrounded by this rural white countryside, populated by these little towns around there. So there's always tension in the air. But it didn't come in all the time. Most of the time, this was idyllic. Imagine living in a place where you had your own gymnasium, because the university gymnasium was open to all of us. You had your own playing fields, football fields, baseball diamonds, all those kind of things. So in many ways, it was an idyllic life. Mm-hmm.